Today we've got the 20 best Quest 2 games you've probably never played, starting with Carve Snowboarding. From the creator of 1080 Snowboarding, Carve Snowboarding will throw you onto the slopes for some crazy snowboarding fun and virtual reality. With several different locations and mechanics that just feel right, Carve Snowboarding will make you feel like you're flying down the mountain while you're doing tricks and trying to top the leaderboards. On top of this, there's a lot of unlockables like boards, gloves, and mixtapes that you can listen to. The trick system in this is really fun to mess around with. Plus, you can freestyle, you can run down the mountain without the time attack mode just for fun. It's got a lot of really cool things going for it. So if you're a fan of snowboarding or just sports in general, or you wanted to try snowboarding and you're too afraid to do it in real life, then Carve Snowboarding might be a great option. Next up is Sorrento VR Untethered. Now this game is older and it's got a lot of crazy options. You can play it comfortable if you're newer to VR, or if you want to go absolutely insane, you can actually do backflips in the game, wall runs, all different types of flips and slides, and it's got some amazing combat options that, if you can get used to it, will make you feel like you've jumped into a Kung Fu or Matrix movie. With fast-paced and fun gun gameplay, some melee combat as well, and some unique locations for you to play around in, Sorrento VR on the Quest 2 is brutal, fast-paced, and super satisfying once you get the hang of it. FREEDIVER Triton down throws you into a sinking ship and forces you to escape. With a unique story, and even though the game isn't super long, the swimming mechanic works really well, and as you have to manage your oxygen, escape a sinking ship, and try to not die, this game will have your heart beating as you try not to drown. There's nothing more exciting than trying not to die in a situation where you have little to no control. Managing oxygen is scary even in games like Minecraft. Now imagine jumping in and trying to do it in VR in a sinking ship where the air pockets are shrinking and shrinking. It's terrifying, but it's also a blast. Stones of Harlath is kind of like a pixel art game built into a 3D world with some flat characters. It's super unique, but it's a blast. It puts you into the role of a wizard as you learn new spells, fight against different types of monsters, some huge, crazy bosses, and it's got a really cool story to boot. If you're looking for a more story-geared game with some unique visuals and some cool magic stuff happening, Stones of Harlath is a lot of fun. It's not the longest game in the world, and if you don't like pixel art, then you might not like this style of game. Let me tell you though, it's not low resolution, it's low polygon. Is that the right term? Whatever it is, it looks sharp and crisp and clear in the game. It's just that everything is a lower pixel count, so it just has a unique look to it. It's stylized and designed to look like that, and it works really well while you're playing it in virtual reality. Shadow Point has long been one of my absolute favorite games on the Quest platform. This will have you solving puzzles, light and shadow-based puzzles, to rescue your long-lost friend. I love the story in this game. This is probably my favorite story-based puzzler on the Quest, and maybe in all of VR. It's super impactful, and as you go along through the story, as time passes and things change, you'll understand if you play it or if you've played it. It's just super impactful, and the puzzles are fun, the visuals are poppy and bright and unique. It's just a really unique and fun puzzler game with a really fun story, and I highly recommend it if you like to solve puzzles and you're looking for a heartfelt and sometimes kind of gut-wrenching story. Layers of Fear VR is frightening, and not the kind of frightening where you're like, oh, that was scary, but like, holy crap, get me out of this headset frightening. At least for me. This is a jump scare game that'll have you trembling as you go around the corners, and things change around you, and you open up one door and then you go back through the door and it brings you somewhere else, and things are moving and things are falling off the shelves, and there's creepy babies, and it's terrifying, at least for me, and watching others play it, like Beardo Benjo, was hilarious, as it seemed to frighten him pretty well as well. Honestly, even though it may not be the best horror game on the Quest platform, it might be the most underrated because it's a story-based game, has quite a long campaign to it. It went from flat to VR, and it's got a lot of stuff going for it. It's fun, atmospheric, frightening, and if you're looking for something that'll scare the pants off of you and keep you busy for several hours, then this could be what you're looking for. Layers of Fear VR frightened the crap out of me, and I'll be honest, I have not finished it, but I have watched others finish it, so That's pretty much the same thing, right? Path of the Warrior is one of my favorite action games that got a bad rap for some reason when it first launched. I personally think it's a hilarious and a super fun game, especially if you play it in co-op. Path of the Warrior makes you feel like you're playing something like Double Dragon or Streets of Rage as you completely pound all of the baddies to make your way through the levels. Outlandish levels, let me add, with some amazing boss fights as well. I think it got a bad rap because some of the simple animations in it, but in all honesty, it plays and feels like a classic side-scrolling beat-em-up game, which is perfect for me. Whether you're grabbing weapons, throwing someone onto a grill in a kitchen, or fighting against these outlandish and crazy bosses, I had a blast playing the game, and I think that if you enjoy that type of game, so will you, especially if you've got someone you can play it with. Robo Recall. Now, this is a teleportation-only game, which is one of the reasons some people don't like it, because it doesn't have smooth locomotion. But the game itself is an absolute blast, and the mechanics work really well whether you're ripping robots apart or you're being surrounded by a ton of evil robots trying to blast them. Robo Recall launched a long time ago on the original Quest, maybe even a launch title, I can't remember, but this game, if you enjoy futuristic evil robots and trying to stop them with a light story, that is a lot of fun, and it kind of feels like a wave-based shooter, but allows you to kind of teleport around. This game is quite fun. Even if it's not perfect, I still think that a lot of people should try it, and I actually have a game key for it, so if you want a game key for Robo Recall, comment down below and I'll choose a random person to get that free game key. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of over the zombie genre, but Death Horizon Reloaded is actually pretty darn good, and maybe you're just looking for another zombie game and you haven't tried it yet, but this is a story-based game. Visually, it's gotten better over time as it started off on the original Quest. Now with Quest 2 updates and everything that they've done to the game, there's been additional chapters added, there's co-op, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in this game, and I think it's well worth your look if you like zombie shooter games, especially story-based ones. This is a little bit different of a location and a story than any of the other zombie games on the Quest platform, almost in like a Resident Evil style type of place, sort of, but not really. The zombies are a little unique, they're a little silly sometimes, but they're still kind of creepy. But overall, it's a lot of fun, and I think that if you like zombie shooters or just kind of fun shooters, then this is a game to check out. Down the Rabbit Hole takes the Alice in Wonderland story and kind of throws it on its head, because you don't actually play as Alice or really see Alice. You play as a unnamed girl that goes to Wonderland. It's kind of like a platformer game mixed with a first-person puzzle game, because as you play through the game, you'll control this young girl character, and you'll also zoom in and do puzzles from a first-person perspective. It's like a diorama-style game that moves around you, and it's got some really unique locomotion methods. It's got a fun story. The writing is really good. I think that the voiceover stuff in it's really funny too. It's a silly little game that I think that you'll enjoy if you want something that's story-based and funny and has a really cool platforming kind of element. Cosmo Dread is one of the few horror-based VR games I forced myself to actually play all the way through because it was so well done. It's super atmospheric, it's terrifying, and it's a lot of fun. It's a roguelite style game, but not in the same way that a lot of the new ones are. So in this game, you are put onto a randomized ship, and you have to try to escape. And each time you're given different weapons, the enemies are in different spots, the whole ship layout is totally changed. You have to try to get everything you need to then get to an escape pod and escape off the ship. And it will take you several runs, trust me. I made it to the end after 2 hours of playing and died, and it was heart-wrenching. But it's a lot of fun to play through, especially if you like kind of atmospheric horror stuff, because the aliens in it are creepy and they will scare the living tar out of you. Trust me. It's got some really cool flashlight mechanics for the Quest, and overall, it was a blast to play. This is the only baseball game on the Quest platform, and honestly, even though it looks kind of funny and a little cartoony, and the balls and the bats are a little bit bigger than they would be in real life, it's a lot of fun to play. It's been a long time since I've actually had the time to play it, but when I was playing it consistently, it was really cool, and it's got some cool customization stuff, some cool avatar stuff in it. I'm in it, I think, still. You can actually play as me. Some of the pitching mechanics are really satisfying, and they actually feel really good. And if you don't want to actually physically throw the ball, you can shoot it with the hand cannon type of pitching machine, which makes it a little bit easier. Although there's something special about winding up and physically pitching a real or actually virtual baseball and it going down and striking out the batter at the end of the 9th inning. And this just winning the game that way, super satisfying. Definitely recommend checking it out. Even though it doesn't necessarily look like it would be the most realistic and fun baseball game, trust me, it is really fun to play. Time Stall is a time-based puzzle game that's pretty hilarious, albeit kind of short, but it is a lot of fun to play. In this game, you're on a ship where the robots are kind of going nuts and you have to stop them, and you use a time device to do that. So essentially, you go to all these different areas of the ship, and then everything slows down and freezes, and you have to use the different items to set up a reaction engine to stop the robots from destroying you or whatever happens if they get to you. Whether you're throwing something at a robot or moving something so that it's going a different direction, or you are pulling a lever or pushing a button, all these different things react when you start time, and you have to learn to use physics and the mechanics of what's around you to actually solve these puzzles. It's really unique and a lot of fun, and it feels like one of those incredible machine type of things, but with using time and momentum of moving objects. It's cool anyways. I personally really liked it. Last, Labyrinth, maybe one of the most unique games on the list. It puts you in a wheelchair. You're actually in a wheelchair and has using the controllers to move this young character around in the game. So essentially, you are seated and chained to a wheelchair, and you're helping this young girl move and solve these different deadly puzzles. And I say deadly, I mean deadly. This young girl, I feel bad for her because she's probably going to die dozens or hundreds of times, depending on how long you take to play through the game. But it's kind of got some creepy vibes to it. Area Man Lives is on this list because, again, it is super unique. You actually use your real voice to talk in this game. And by real voice, I mean you actually talk as a radio DJ, and what you say affects the story. And it actually records what you say and uses that as like ads on the radio, for instance. You read ad copy, and it's really unique. It's one of the few games that actually uses vocal commands on the Quest, and it does it really well. Plus, it's got a really interesting story about the area man. It's kind of like a murder mystery type of thing, and it's really fun to play around in the sound booth with the different things and just see the story progress through the radio and through phone calls as you sort of control the outcome of what happens through the game and see things happening outside of the station. It's a really fun and unique experience that I recommend, even if only for using your actual voice to play the game. I've been singing the praises of Lies Beneath since it launched. I actually think it's one of the most underrated games on the Quest platform. This is like a horror comic book art style shooter with a nice long story campaign, which is honestly still pretty rare on the Quest platform. The art style is really fun. It's got some freaking creepy stuff going on in it. The weapons react and play really well. The enemies are creepy, and it's got a great story. So why haven't you played it? No, but seriously, I think you should definitely play this if you like horror shooter games, first-person shooters of any kind, or just want a really cool comic book style atmospheric game that does a great job at telling a really fun and unique story. Rush is an older game actually, but it's fun. Not a lot of people really talk about it because I think it's older, but if you want to play a wingsuit game that really gets the speed right, Rush will do it for you. As you fly down the mountains and you play through the different levels and locations, it'll actually make you feel like you're flying down the mountain with the speed feeling really good. Personally, I did not play it for quite a long time after the Quest released. And actually, it was on PSVR that I originally wanted to play it, I think, but I just never got around to it. And then after Quest 2 launched, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna play this game, and I really enjoyed it. Speaking about games that fall through the cracks and nobody talks about, Crashland is one of those games. This is a fantastic, another shooter, yes, but it's an alien planet-based shooter where you're dropped in a planet and you have to survive. Tons of aliens coming at you. It sounds like a wave-based shooter, and it kind of is at its most basic form, but the aliens are really creepy. You can freely move around inside of the alien world. You're fighting off these aliens and surviving so that you can get to the ship to pull you off of the planet. Some of the levels are incredibly creepy, especially the nighttime stuff, and it's hard. Like, it is very, very challenging, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining. I'm saying that this game will take you time and you have to get good at it. And it's one of those games that just makes you feel really good when you finally beat one of those levels. It's got a lot of good content to it. I know a lot of people that really like it, but it's another one of those ones that just kind of flies under the radar due to not a lot of people knowing about it. Ghost Giant might be one of the saddest, most impactful stories on the Quest. It's not that it's sad all the way through, it's just that it's emotional. That's probably the right word. Ghost Giant has you playing as a ghost giant as you interact with Lewis and help him. Well, I won't ruin what happens, but you help him anyways as you solve different puzzles and go to different areas and help him do different things. It's really impactful, one of those story-based games that's not super long as you play from kind of a third-person perspective, although you're playing as a giant ghost that he talks to. You're going to interact with these really cool diorama-style pieces that go all around you. You can lift up things and move things and solve things. It's just one of those really cool, impactful games I think a lot of people should play. Barbaria just launched recently in the last couple of weeks on the Quest, and why am I including it on this list? Well, because I'm not seeing as many people talk about it as I thought that I would. It's actually a lot of fun, and I wanted to play it on the channel. I just haven't gotten around to it. I might do it in the next couple of weeks. This game actually feels a lot like a mixture of like Gorn and almost like an RTS style game and like a dungeon crawler sort of, I guess. What you do is you actually play as a medieval style like big character with weapons, and you are going to travel to different places, different worlds if you will, and you're going to fight against enemies, you're going to loot treasure, and you have your own location that you set up that others travel to. So if you set it up right with traps and enemy spawners and you put your hero in there to fight, when you beat those people as they come to your place, you earn coins to be able to buy new stuff. If they defeat you, then they've looted you and they get coins. It's a unique kind of not so much multiplayer experience, but multiplayer at the same time. And what's really cool is that it actually records what the person did in your world from a third-person camera. So you can actually see how they played in your world, so you can adjust it for the next person that's gonna try looting you. Well, there you go. There's 20 of the best Quest 2 games that you probably haven't played. Let me know in the comments which of these games is your favorite if you've played it, or is the game that you want to actually play that you haven't tried yet. Or maybe there's a game that's not on this list you think should be. Put that down in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to check out another one of my videos, you can do that right here. Thanks again, and happy questing.